Well, good morning, Mrs. Mansfield. Or is it Miss Mansfield? Please, come in and have a seat.
Oh, thank you, and good morning.
Good morning.
Actually, I prefer Ms. Mansfield, if you don't mind.
Oh, I guess that means you're divorced then.
My marital status is confidential.
Oh, okay. So, do you have any kids?
Yes, I do. I have 2 adorable boys.
Oh, I guess that means that you can't work full-time then.
Oh, but yes, I need a full-time salary to bring them up. They're both at school now. They're no trouble.
Oh, okay. But won't you need to take time off because they'll be getting sick and you'll have to go to like school meetings and things like that?
No, they're no trouble. They're big boys now.
Oh, okay. Anyway, how old are you? Mid-30s?
Oh, I'd rather not tell you my age. That's personal information.
Oh, but isn't your like biological clock ticking, and you'll probably want to have another baby soon. And I mean, pregnant women are such a liability to the company.
Look, perhaps we could discuss the post. What exactly would my duties be?
Well, your duties would be, you'll have an office, and the office will be near the kitchen. And so you'll be able to get some coffee for the managers. And another thing is the photocopier is going to be in your office. Okay. So every now and then you'll be able to get some photocopies for the boys.
Oh.
Yeah, and there's going to be a big mirror in your office. So you can fix your hair and your face and try to wear something a little bit sexy because the CEO likes that.
You do realize that I have a PhD from Harvard?
Oh, that's wonderful. Anyway, you're going to be working for young Mr. Jones, who's straight out of high school and just started working for the company.
You cannot be serious. I should have his job.
Are you always this grumpy, or is it that time of the month?
And what's the salary for this wonderful job?
Oh, it's $500 a month. All the girls get paid that here.
Women, you mean? We're women, not girls.
Oh no, another feminist. We don't need that kind of thing here, sorry. Next.
Oh. Now today we're going to be discussing gender inequality. So the way that the 2 sexes, men and women, are treated differently in society. And I'd like to start, Paul, by asking you, do you see yourself as a typical man?
Typical man. Well, I guess that depends on what you mean by typical. Because if you go back to my grandfather's generation, typical meant that men worked and women stayed home, took care of the house, took care of the kids, took care of the food, things like that. Men took care of the house as in constructing, farming, and working. And that was quite normal in my grandfather's generation. And, the thing is, the jobs had to get done. Someone had to bring in the money, someone had to take care of the house, and basically a lot of the jobs were very manual. So we didn't have the technology like we have today. The computers that you were using, your cell phones, things like that. So there was a lot more manual labor involved. Although it wasn't totally manual, of course, but basically that's how it worked. Although some women did work in Canada, where I'm from. Some of them did. I mean, we had to have other kinds of jobs, and women did work, but not a lot. No. Then in my father's generation, with technology changing and it started to change a lot actually. And more women started to decide that they wanted to work. And so they started going out and getting more jobs. And as a result, what happened was you started to have 1.5 roughly people working. The man would work full time, and the woman would work maybe like a part-time job or semi-full time. It was moving up. And that was quite normal. And so the number of children started decreasing, of course, because people wanted to work more. But we also have to look at the economy. And the economy was, as you know, was getting worse and worse. Technology is taking away so many jobs. So it's this idea that, well, if you want a certain standard of living, then you need to work. And so more women are deciding to work. But another reason was they also wanted more independence. They wanted to do what they wanted to do, and more were like, we don't want to stay home. We want to go out and do other things.
So who takes care of the children in such a case?
Well, the children go to school, and a lot of times in Canada we don't have, the after-school schools like you guys, like the Bushy Bonds, the cram schools, things like this. We don't have really those in Canada. So again, the grandparents were very important, or maybe going to a friend's house or something like this. Now, in my generation, it's quite normal for two parents or two people who have a relationship to work. Even those that don't, the women want to go out more and more and work and do something else. And of course, you go back in history, maybe to like 1950s, women were getting into politics. Women were starting to become CEOs of companies in Canada. And so they were moving up and up and up. And now, of course, it's quite normal to have women in all kinds of positions, doing all kinds of things. This has changed society a lot in some ways, because Canada right now, our infertility rate, the number of children we're having is much, much less, and it's the tax base is becoming less and less, and it's like, who's going to pay the taxes? Who's going to pay the health care?
So
And
same problem as Taiwan.
Right, but it's not that. Well, personally, I don't have a problem, seeing a woman have the job that she wants. The problem is not a problem, but a job has to be done. If someone has to take care of the kids, like you said, someone has to take care of the house. Of course, the question is, why can't a man do it? Can I speak clearly? I'm going to say this: women are better at taking care of children than men. My wife is better. Okay, she has more patience with the children than she does. And I'll be honest with you, I have a burden, a desire. I want to take care of my wife. I want to provide for her. I want to go out and work and give her nice things. I want to do that. That's part of how I feel. I want to take care of her. And so I think
that's a very traditional view of a relationship.
That is, I think that is how a man feels. He wants to take care of his wife. Now, as I said, I'd have no problem with her working. If she wants to work, she can go right ahead. I'm just saying I have a desire that I want her, I want to take care of her. Okay, taking care of her is important to me. Now, I'm not saying all men are like that, absolutely not. But then again, we can check on the women too and say, well, what are women thinking about? And that's a question that maybe you would like to answer. So let's shift it over to you. Look at the next question then, based on my last question, which is, but does gender inequality affect your life? Because as a woman, I'm sure you've got some stories that the kids would love to hear about gender inequality.
Well, I'd say yes, every single day. I grew up in the Middle East, so I grew up in an Arab country where there are very fixed gender roles. And so as a girl, it wasn't really expected that I'd work. What usually happens is that a woman, when she reaches the age of 18, 19, she gets married, and her husband is going to take care of her, and she will stay at home and look after the children. So that was what was expected of me. That's sort of what I was prepared for, and that's not what I wanted at all. And I rebelled against that, I guess, and I had no children, and I had a very exciting, successful career, because that's what I wanted personally. So that has caused problems with my family, because that's not what they wanted of me.
So is your father, mother, or what nationality are
Well,
they?
my father is Palestinian,
Okay.
Arab, and my mother is English.
Okay, I see.
Um,
That caused problems between both of them?
well, with
or
my father.
With your father?
Yes, he was a little disappointed
Okay, all right.
that I didn't have children and that I went out to work, and
Okay.
my career was important for me.
Okay,
And apart from that, I mean, in the Arab world, women don't really have much independence. I mean, it would be very unusual for a woman to go out in her car and to go shopping on her own, for example.
Right, you could go out really shopping on your own?
Well, you can, but people might look at you. It's more likely that you'd go out with your family, with your brother, your father, your husband generally, or perhaps with female friends, but not so much on your own.
Well, that's very different from my country. Very different.
And I like that freedom and independence that we have here in Taiwan, for example, where women are very, very free. And then afterwards I lived in Europe. I lived in England and in France. And French culture is extremely chauvinistic, very sexist. and I came up with an awful lot of situations there where, for example, it was understood that since my husband was working, I didn't need a very good job. And if I wasn't paid as well as my colleagues, then that was okay because I had a husband to provide for me. And I was just working to keep myself busy so I didn't get bored. So I often came across that. Now let's move on to the next question. Do you think that life is generally easier for men or for women?
You know, that's a hard question to answer. I really wouldn't know. I mean, honestly, I see those movies where men, you know, dress up as women and pretend, you know, they switch bodies and all that. But for inequality-wise, I would say it's harder for a woman because they're treated. You know how black people were treated? Okay, you know, it's kind of like the same thing. But to me, it's like the same thing. They're suppressed in certain ways. They are, because they're seen as women, and I think that needs to change. I think what happens is that, as I was saying earlier, it's, you know, men need to learn to provide for their wives. They can still work, but it's because they care about them. It's a caring issue, and they have to care about each other. If that's true, and they do care, then there won't be, you know, this feeling of I'm being suppressed, I'm being put down, because they will allow each other to have the kind of life that they want. And I think that's what's important. I mean, if she wants to work, why not? You know, and if she doesn't, why not? You know, it's a choice that people have to decide before they have this long-term relationship, what kind of life they want. And if my wife wants to work, I'm like, you know, unless I got a problem with that, why not? But at the same time, I have children. I take care of the children. I wash the dishes. I do the laundry, because we need to share the responsibilities. We need to take care of each other. So I think overall, yeah, women, of course, have had definitely the worst time of it than men.
I don't necessarily agree with you all the time. I think men sometimes have a very rough time because they have to be brave and courageous and capable of everything.
You mean like war?
No, I think just for everyday situations we expect men to be able to deal with stuff. Whereas women can just say, oh, I don't know how to do that, or that's too difficult, or that's too heavy, or, you know, I'll let my husband deal with it. Whereas men tend to have to deal with some of the more difficult stuff. And for example, generally we don't accept a man crying in public, things like that. So it's very interesting to see our different viewpoints on that. And I'm sure you have a lot to say too. Be very interesting to hear what you have to say about the different roles of genders in Taiwanese culture. So that's it from us today. Goodbye.
See you later.
Gender inequality, the vocabulary section. Inequality, inequality, noun.
不平等，
Disparity, not even, disproportion. Inequality between the rich and the poor can cause social problems.
Income, noun.
收入、所得，
Revenue, earnings, money received for work. She has a nice home and a good income.
Nurture, verb.
培育、养育、教养，
Care for and protect someone or something while they are growing. He was nurtured by his parents in a loving family.
Aggression, noun.
侵略、挑衅、攻击，
Feelings of anger resulting in hostile or violent behavior, readiness to attack. Drivers who show aggression often cause accidents.
Seek, verb.
寻找、寻求，
Look for, attempt or desire to find, obtain or achieve something. The new director sought his help.
Occupation, noun.
职业
a job or profession. She had finished her studies and was ready to seek a full-time occupation.
Liability. Liability. Noun.
负担责任
Nuisance. Inconvenience. A person or thing whose presence or behaviour puts one at a disadvantage. Her lazy colleague had become a liability to the company.
Chore. Chore. Noun.
家务杂物
A routine task, especially a household one. Her illness made even daily chores like shopping difficult.
Contraception. Contraception. Noun.
避孕节孕
Birth control. Methods to prevent pregnancy as a consequence of sexual intercourse. Condoms are one of the easiest methods of contraception.
Construction. Construction. Noun.
建设建造
The action of building something, typically a large structure. There was a skyscraper under construction.
Breadwinner. Breadwinner. Noun.
负担家计的人
A person who earns money to support their family, typically the sole one. When John lost his job, his wife became the breadwinner.
Domesticity. Domesticity. Noun.
家居生活
Home or family life. The atmosphere in my grandparents' home is one of happy domesticity.
Barrier. Barrier. Noun.
阻碍物入障
An obstacle that prevents movement or access. Police erected barriers to control the crowd.
Developing nation. Developing nation. Noun.
开发中国家
A country that has a lower economic status or standard of living than developed nations. Third world countries are also known as developing nations.
Literacy rate. Literacy rate. Noun.
识字率
The percentage of people who are able to read and write. Taiwan has an excellent education system and a very high literacy rate.
Vulnerability. Vulnerability. Noun.
脆弱弱点
Easily hurt or attacked. Some seniors think it's funny to pick on younger kids because of their vulnerability.
GDP. Gross domestic product. GDP. Gross domestic product. Noun.
国内生产毛额
The monetary value of all the goods and services produced in a country in a year. Taiwan's GDP is higher than many of its neighbours.
Reluctant. Reluctant. Showing little interest to do something. Not willing to do something.
不情愿的
Spending merely 2 hours at Disneyland, the children were reluctant to leave Mickey and Minnie behind.
Rape. Rape. Verb and noun.
强奸
Unlawful sexual assault, usually involving sexual intercourse against a person without that person's consent. Sexual violence on American college campuses is a huge problem, and 20% of college freshman women are victims of rape.
Abortion. Abortion. Noun.
流产堕胎
The deliberate termination of a human pregnancy. A woman may choose to have an abortion if she doesn't want to have a baby.
Awareness raising. Awareness raising. Noun.
唤起意识
Informing people about issues of concern. Awareness raising is important to encourage the public to recycle plastic and paper. Now we have a vocabulary quiz. So question 1. When Mum was out, nobody would do household such as washing the dishes and doing the laundry. So which answer will you choose? Barriers, chores, vulnerability, domesticity?
Question 2. Of 1/3 of households, fathers still take the role of sole A. Abortion, B. Aggression, C. Breadwinner, D. Occupation.
And that's the end of vocabulary for the gender inequality. Goodbye.